My name's Steve Genewick, and I'm one of the recording engineers here at Capitol Studios. So I've been at Capitol for 25 years now. And, you know, in those 25 years, the beauty of working at Capitol is eventually you get to work with pretty much everybody. So I've worked with just about everybody I ever wanted to work with. It's been a really great run. I'm really happy I had the opportunity to do it. You know, history with Neve is easy because this is the second studio I've been on staff at, and we've had Neve consoles in both of those studios. At this point here at Capitol, we have 4 Neve consoles. We have 2 88Rs and we have 2 8068s, and could not be happier with all of them. It's definitely my go-to. Even when I go to other studios, I'll always get on a Neve if I can. They're just my favorite console for a number of reasons. One, they sound fantastic, and 2, you know, they work, and I know how to work them, which is great. But it's like driving a car. You know, you want to drive the car that you're comfortable with. So, yeah, I love all the Neves. Here we do a lot of recording. Again, so we have the big analog consoles. In Studio A, we have the 88R that we put in 7 or 8 years ago now, and Studio B has the 8068, which has been in there since the 70s. And I was told by someone at Neve that it's actually serial number 1, that it's the first 8068. It was put in there in the 70s, and we added to it about 15 years ago. So it's actually 2 8068s put together now. But because we have big studios, we still do a lot of recording projects. So it's not unusual for us to be utilizing the consoles, you know, for preamps and routing and all that stuff. It's not unusual for us to fill these consoles. We still do a lot of records. You know, we do big band records, we do orchestral records, rock albums. You know, the rock guys love Studio B, a lot of jazz records. We do a lot of film and TV scoring. Recently, I've been doing some video game stuff. And then we have, you know, big events and stuff like that here at the studio, but lots of recording, which is why we still need big analog consoles. Best feature of a Neve console, the preamps. Especially the old ones in B, we all love those. For years we had 2 VRs, which were great. Love those, especially for mixing, the flexibility of it for mixing. When we put the 88R in, I was quite pleased. I don't know if I was surprised, but I was quite pleased at how good the preamps sounded. To the point where there's been times where we, you know, with the VRs, we used to bring in outboard mic pre's all the time. Usually Neves, we have racks of old Neves and stuff like that. Now it's not unusual for us to just use the console preamps for everything. I really like the way they sound. This 88R that we put in here, I always say for a modern console, is the closest thing I've ever heard to one of the old 80 series Neves. It's just got that punch and the air that we all love about Neve consoles, and this one has it. That, and now we have that sound and the flexibility of a modern console, you know, where we can do inline stuff and routing, and we can mix 7.1, and, you know, we have the film module in this console, so we can do film stems and all that good stuff. So it's been a really great console for us, and it's nice to have both and be able to go back and forth. The one thing I really love the dynamics on this console. I use them all the time, and because of, I think, the legacy with the VRs, where the dynamics were really good, but they weren't the most flexible compressors in the world. People are always a little hesitant, and I just tell them, like, no, man, I've been using these for years. You got to jump in and use them. The dynamics on this console are really great. I use them all the time. I use them for recording. So I'm not averse to hitting that button. It's really nice to have. EQs are, again, flexible, and they can be as surgical as you want them to be or as broad as you want them to be. So I really enjoy using the console, and I'll use all the features of the console. I'll use, you know, if I have to gate something, I have no problem, you know, hitting that button. So everything, where in the past, some consoles, you know, you avoid certain parts of it because there's a better tool. With this one, all the tools on the console are great, and I use them all the time. And I encourage our other clients to try them too. You know, instead of patching in something, just hit the button. You'll be surprised. Do it. The beauty of this console is we can use as much of the console or as little of the console as we want, because we have patch points for fader outs and direct outs. You know, you can put stuff in the path, take it out of the path, the dynamics, the EQ, the inserts, all that kind of stuff. So the flexibility we have to either use or not use parts of the console makes it very handy too. But yeah, 48 buses is plenty because we've got 72 direct outs, and that's usually what gets used. A couple years ago, I was in England and I did a tracking session on a Genesis at a friend's studio. And I wouldn't say I was dubious, but I had never worked on one before, so I was a little like, oh, I wonder how this is gonna go. And I was very, very happy with the results. You know, the preamps he had sounded great. I was able to sit down, it immediately felt familiar to me. So, you know, there was a little bit of a learning curve, but I knew what I was looking for, and, you know, having worked on Neves for so long, you know, it was an easy transition. You know, the nomenclature was the same, and the colors were the same, and that kind of stuff. So it was easy for me to switch over to the Genesis and really very quickly, you know, acclimate to it and be able to move around very fast on it. And I was really happy with the results we got with it. It was a really great experience, and it was very encouraging to see that kind of power in a small footprint that could be put into a home studio, for instance, or a smaller studio. And you know, not everybody can fit a 18-foot long console in their front room. So yeah, it's nice to have that flexibility. I think there's always going to be a need for these large consoles. In rooms like this, where we have big rooms attached to the big scoring stages, you know, there's always going to be somebody who needs to record a lot of people all at once. And the fact of the matter is, you can do that on a work surface with outboard mic pre's and stuff like that, but it really ties your hands. It's so much easier to do it with a big console, an analog console. Again, it's a bit of a luxury, but it's kind of a luxury that still needs to be around. It's not always the tool we use, but here, for big recording sessions, it's great to have. I mean, the beauty of this is more than one person can work on it. You know, it's not unusual if we're doing a big thing like the Academy Awards or something like that to have 2 or 3 of us that are actually moving faders and twisting knobs and doing all that kind of stuff, just because there's so much stuff going on. And when you're on a work surface or in the box or anything like that, it's one guy with a mouse. You know, even if you have a work surface, it's still hard to do it with 2 people. Maybe you can do more than one thing at a time, but having more than one person at a time can be very difficult. So I think there will always be a place for large analog consoles, and I certainly don't want to see them go away. As much as I love working in the box, and there's times where you have to work in the box and the console is not the appropriate thing for the job, it's still way more fun working on a big console, especially one that sounds really good. So, funny story about when we installed this console. So we ordered the console, bought it brand new. It was built for us in England, and came over on the boat, and Robin and the guys showed up to install it. And I think we had about 4 weeks set aside to install the console. And while we were doing that, we were redoing some acoustics in the room and changing speakers and pulling cables. So there was a lot more than just installing the console. And of course, being a construction project, we had time built in. We had 4 weeks to do this, and then a couple weeks to break in the console, and then we had a big session coming. And construction being what it is, we ran late. So the time we had for the break-in of the console and for us to figure out how to use it and make sure everything was working and everything else we did was working, we lost that time. So the very first session that we did on this console was a live Paul McCartney shoot, live broadcast to the world. Was the very first thing. It was a little nerve-wracking. So when I came in the first day for the first rehearsal, there were feet hanging out from under the console, and it was fun. But yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking. So the claim to fame of this console is the first thing that ever ran through it was a live Paul McCartney session. And we pulled it off. It's actually a DVD called Live Kisses. It came out great. And the console worked flawlessly. Can't say so much about some of the other stuff we did, but the console worked great.